I want to talk on a subject that is it ticks me off. This whole notion that if you are anti-Zionist, you are racist and you don't like Jewish people. That is the biggest load of dog crap cow manure I've ever heard. And the reason I'm talking about this now is because the French president, Emmanuel Macron, somebody who I'm not a big fan of, has decided to take it upon himself to enact new laws, new anti-Semitic laws, which now state that anti-Zionism is also a form of anti-Semitism and racism. And he's taken it upon himself to ban certain groups, to censor the internet, to crack down on people, not who are criticizing Jews or anti-Semitic or any of that stuff, but who criticize Israel, the state of Israel. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm an anti-Zionist. I criticize Israel. I think Israel should get the hell out of Palestine and get the hell out of Palestine now. I think Israel is part of the reason why we have all these Muslims blowing everybody up. It's not the only reason, but it's a large part of the reason. Many of them are ticked off. But Emmanuel, and not just the center or the globalists, but even people on the right, the center right, the Zionists on the right, they've now come together and said, look, we're also going to say that anti-Zionism, and people who don't know what Zionism is, Zionism, by definition, the definition of Zionism, and I'm pulling that up right now, is a movement, so Zionism, a movement for the reestablishment and the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. It was established as a political organization in 1897 under Theodore Herzl and was later led by Chaim Weizmann. So basically means, well, it used to mean a movement to reestablish a Jewish state, and that could have been anywhere. Some people wanted to do Madagascar. I mean, this is Africa. I mean, a bunch of Jews going to take over an African nation. Some people wanted to do it in Central America. Ultimately, they chose Israel. A bunch of Muslims living there already, and they decided we're going to move to Israel. Okay, fair enough. They have Palestine now, which, this is causing a bunch of problems. And people criticize it. People criticize it. It's criticizing a different nation. It has nothing to do with Jews. I mean, if this was Muslims or any other religion that was acting like this and people criticize it, no one would say anything. No one would say a word. I mean, what is it? What is it with these Asian religions, and Christianity is also Asian, so I shouldn't say that, with these religion, these non-Christian religions, whereby if you criticize any little thing that has anything to do with them, you are just blanketly racist against all of them. It's the same thing with Islam, but I'm talking about Jews now. Everybody talks about Islam and everybody criticizes it. Nobody has the guts to criticize anything to do with Jews because they've got a lot of money and they put money in the pockets of a lot of individuals and politicians. And so the politicians on the left and the right come together and they say, oh, you can't do that. Nobody does it. So I'm criticizing them, and I'm sure I'm going to get shut down over this. But you know what? I have to talk about this. I think what Emmanuel Macron is doing is anti-freedom of speech. Now, I don't know if they have freedom of speech in France, but I assume that one of the biggest reasons that the French chopped off their king's head in 1789 was so that they could speak freely, so that they could express themselves without being arrested, without being harassed by the law enforcement or being thrown in jail or censored or any of that stuff. Back before the revolution, you had newspapers, you had writers and philosophers. They were all being arrested and censored and all this sort of stuff. And it's happening all over again. But of course, Emmanuel Macron says he's Jupiter. So he thinks he's Louis XIV or one of those other kings or monarchs or whatever. But the fact of the matter is now French people are going to be censored, arrested, or criticized by their government for criticizing the practice of Israeli occupation in Palestine or the state of Israel in general. I mean, you're going to be punished for that in France. Now, he says that this is not a way to censor criticism of Israel. But if you're saying to me now that anti-Zionism is racist or anti-Semitic, and Zionism is a movement to protect or to uplift the Jewish state of Israel, then what do you think this is? It's saying that you are racist for criticizing Israel in any way. You are racist for saying that Israel should come out of Palestine. You're racist for saying that maybe we should boycott Israeli goods or Israeli-made items because of Palestine. You're racist. You're racist. You're anti-Semitic. And you need to repent. That's what Emmanuel Macron is saying. So freedom of speech in France is gone. It's gone. And I have to speak about this. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people out there, even some people in my in my movement, who are going to say, oh, you can't, why are you criticizing Israel, this and that? But the fact of the matter is, I am not a Zionist. I'm not a Zionist. And I say that proudly. And I'll criticize anything I think is unjust. Now, I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. I agree with the American plan to put the embassy in Jerusalem, but I have always said that there should be two states. Palestine should be independent. Israel should not build anything in any homelands, any occupation, any tents, whatever, what they're building. And they should stop doing that. They should just maybe live side by side. If they want to build a wall between the two regions, they can do it and don't talk to each other. But I think that what is happening, the current situation that's happening in Israel right now is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And why should I be censored for saying that? Why should I? Israel is a country. It's a nation, for crying out loud. I mean, why should people in France now be criticized or locked up or censored for criticizing Israel? I'll tell you why. It's because of money. And I'll also tell you this. You know, there have been many reports in the French media of a growing anti-Semitism in France. People writing swastikas on graves and all this sort of stuff. Yellow vests being anti-Semitic. You know what? I hate any type of racism or sexism whatsoever, or any type of discrimination. I think people who are racist or discriminatory, they should go to hell. They should burn. Fried jerk chicken over them. They are the epitome. They are evil. They are nothing. They are no good. Dirt, dust, nothing. I hate all of them. They're going to hell. They're going to hell. God told me they're going to hell. But I have a feeling that a lot of these so-called anti-Semitic acts that are happening in France may have been either false flags or just hyped up so that the president could now get the opportunity to ban any criticism of Israel. And the reason he and many politicians are so desperate to do that is because you've got many Jewish groups, pro-Israel groups, organizations, rich business people. Money is flowing into their pockets, okay? Let me tell you, and this isn't racist, okay? Amen? Is this racist? It's not racist. Jews have a lot of money. They've got a lot of money. And this is true. Banks, you got Rothschild, Soros, all the Hollywood people are Jewish. Everybody's Jewish. They've got money. They can do whatever they want because they've got money. I'm sure if you pooled all the money in the Jewish world together, it would well exceed $1 trillion. So there's plenty of money to go around. And they put the money in people's pockets, in the politicians' pockets. Emmanuel Macron, and all their even Donald Trump's pocket, they probably put it in because, I mean, even he is. And they put it there. And they say, we're going to get, and there's more of that where that came from. There's more of the greenbacks where that came from. If you do what we say, if you make sure that you keep your populace in line, they don't criticize our Israel, they don't criticize what we do with Palestine, they don't do any of that stuff. And it's attempt to rule basically rule the planet. I mean, come on. I'm probably going to get shut down for this. But I'm going to say it. I ain't think I'm afraid of no Jew. You think I'm afraid of any Jews? Must be out of him. I've criticized Muslims. I've criticized globalists. I've criticized white liberals and socialists. I've criticized them. You think I'm afraid of? I ain't afraid of. No, I've criticized everybody under the sun. You think I'm going to be afraid of Jews? I'm going to criticize because it's right, and you need to be criticized. A world without criticism means disaster is going to happen. So I think that Emmanuel Macron, I think the yellow vests in France, any of them who can understand me right now, should have a very, the demonstrations that they have done in France have been great, but I think that this Saturday they should have the mother of all protests and the mother of all demonstrations and riot and whatever you have to do to say to Emmanuel Macron, hey, you're not going to take away my freedom of speech. We're going to criticize Israel. We're not going to be racist, but we're going to criticize Israel. We're going to criticize this practice of all this money going around to try and get our point of view across. We're going to criticize it. We're going to criticize it, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is what our ancestors, the society that our ancestors created back in 1789 when we chopped off King Louis XVI's head. We have freedom of speech in France. So don't take that away from us over some foreign country over there in the Middle East. Why are we supposed to bow down to a country in the Middle East which we are criticizing certain practices of? Why are you taking that from us? There should be a mother of all protests on the streets of Paris to demonstrate the notion that Emmanuel Macron thinks that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That is wrong. That is wrong. And most Jews agree with me too. There are many Jews who disagree with the practices of Israel. Many of them. Many of them. You stay there, Emmanuel. You stay there. Wait till the yellow vests come after you. Wait till the yellow vests come after you. This is the Arana Nation.